You're in your 20s or 40s or 60s, 80s plus. I've got three handy hacks that have completely revolutionized things for me as a cancer patient. One of the hacks costs nothing at all. The other two, it's entirely up to you. If you want to spend a lot of money, or you're broke and you don't have much money to spend, or just can't even justify spending the money, then listen on. Number three is my favourite and has had the biggest single impact on me. However, we'll start with number one. Number one is you need a bag. You need a bag that is not a chemo bag, but a bag that sits in the front of your house, somewhere near the door, wherever suitable for you. The bag itself doesn't need to be expensive unless you really, really want it to be and can easily afford it. But otherwise, it could be a tote bag, it could be an old work bag, it could be a carrier bag, it could be a bag from Amazon. I use a black rucksack that I found at the back of a cupboard, so I'm using that. The first thing you need in your bag is a used envelope, or a new envelope if it grabs you, but the used envelope is absolutely fine. And you need two pieces of paper in there. One piece of paper you will write down everything you are taking medication wise at the moment, including the concentration. Not just the stuff that you've received on prescription, but also the stuff that is over the counter. If you're regularly taking paracetamol, for example, put that down. If you're regularly buying something else from the chemist and regularly taking it, put it down. Put down any supplements you're taking, because sometimes that can help or hinder whatever you're doing. The other thing to write down is people often forget things like HRT or oral contraceptives. They need to be written down as well. Take that piece of paper, fold it up, stick it in the envelope. The second piece of paper is for any treatment you're on at the moment. If you're in the middle of a cycle or you're on certain skin treatments at the moment, put those down and write down the concentrations or the frequency with which you take them. Also, write down the name of your hospital and the consultant who's looking after you. Stick that in the envelope as well. The reason I do it on two pieces of paper is because treatment regimes change. But if you're taking vitamin D3 and K2 every day, and I hope you are, then you'll need to write those down in a way that doesn't really change. The other things I keep in the bag are a phone charger. If you suddenly have to go into hospital, you need a phone charger. You really need a phone charger. Everyone has multiple phone chargers knocking around their home. Stick one of them in the bag. If you haven't got a very long cable on your phone charger, I highly recommend that you get a cheap and cheerful extension cord from Amazon, where you can plug maybe one or two plugs in and you can use it for a couple of USBs. Otherwise, just use an extension cable that you've got around the house, because in most hospitals, most of the time, the plug socket is going to be behind you. And if you don't have a very long cable, you're going to be in trouble. I also have a toiletries bag. Now, that doesn't contain every lotion and potion that I've got in my bathroom, but it does contain the most important things, which is a toothbrush and toothpaste. Toothbrushes are available in some hospitals because if you ask for them, in my experience, they're brutal. They're just horrid. If you're on certain types of chemotherapy, quite a few types of chemotherapy, or you have a head and neck problem, then you may need a soft toothbrush anyway. I bought a pack of them from the supermarket. They didn't cost much. And a travel size toothpaste. If there are any lotions and potions that you really can't live without, like your shampoo or a particular shower gel, or you have some sort of dermatological condition where you need to use particular types, then decant them into one of those little travel bottles, label it, and stick it in the toiletries. Finally, you will need a few items of clothing, a set of underwear, and then something really comfortable, doesn't crease hugely, and is just easy to wear. Doesn't matter if it's not lovely. Could be tracksuit bottoms and a t-shirt. It could be, I've got a t-shirt dress in mind because they're just easy to pack. It's done, it's out of the way. When you've got everything together, and you may want different things, the last thing you want is a water bottle. My own preference is a water bottle that has a built-in straw. The reason being, if you are in a hospital bed and you can't easily sit up, then you need something that is easy to drink water from. Also, my experience of hospital water is often it's undrinkable. So if someone is going to buy you, or you buy yourself, some bottled water, you can just tip it into the, the water cup and then drink from that. It's life-saving. So when you've got all these things gathered together, put them by the front door so they're easy to grab, because at 3 o'clock in the morning, or even during the day, if you're feeling desperately unwell and need to go to a hospital, you need to bring it with you. Because there is a good chance, if you're a cancer patient or have another chronic condition like that they will want to keep you in. If they do keep you in, you need that stuff with you. So having that just so that you can grab it on your way to the hospital means the world. It means you're not getting to the hospital and then thinking, what do I need? What do I need? Or desperately trying to remember which medications you're on and inevitably forgetting some of them. My recent video where I talked about having to go into hospital with what I thought was a cold. In that scenario where the ambulance crew took me to hospital, it was much easier to ask one of them to grab the bag on our way out than it is to try and write a mental list in your head for a visitor to go home and get you certain things. Much easier. So number two is for those of you who are on treatment that is causing particularly nausea, but GI symptoms. A lot of chemotherapy does this, an awful lot of chemotherapy, but also some people on certain targeted therapies, and I've even heard a few people who are on immunotherapies will get side effects. If they're GI related, if they're gastric, like throwing up, diarrhea, feeling nauseous, all sorts of things, then the advice you will get from most doctors, including most oncologists, and certainly nurses, dietitians, and your loved ones, will be, well, it's best to just eat what you fancy. What's your favourite? You get home from chemo and your best friend or partner has cooked you your favourite meal. It's a beautiful gesture. Just be mindful that eating at your favourite restaurant after chemotherapy, it's become a bit of a thing, or cooking your favourite food, or just buying your favourite ice cream may end up causing you problems further down the road. What do I mean by that? When you have, let's say it's your favourite ice cream, but you have your favourite ice cream after you've had a treatment session. You get home and you break open the Haagen-Dazs or whatever it is, and you can you can eat that. It's quite soothing and all the rest of it. In your head, what you're doing is creating an association, just like smells have association. Some types of food have association. Roast dinners still remind me of my mum. So yeah, there are lots of associations that our brains make. And what you're doing by using your favorite foods or your favorite restaurant is creating associations between that and feeling really, really unwell. May not be what you want. A friend of mine, she ate her. The reason I mention ice cream is she had a routine of after treatment, she had her favorite ice cream. And the reason she had it was that it was soothing because your mouth and throat are quite dry, and she found it soothing and comforting, and it was her favourite. That's what she did. She can't eat it now. She doesn't like it. She doesn't even like the smell because it brings her right back to feeling desperately unwell, feeling very nauseous, um, and that may not be what you want. I'm not saying avoid everything you like and eat something really disgusting, but just be mindful of making that association in your head between your absolute favourite things and the hospital. So, number three, this one has had the biggest impact on me, and that's possibly because one of the things I've had to come to terms with is how out of control the whole circumstance of having cancer is. Everything feels out of control. And this gave me some sense of my priorities and my sense of focusing on the things I can control. It was something that was said to me by a friend of mine who has now died. And he suggested that I sat down without distractions. I actually did it in a local coffee shop, but if you can do it in a room in the house, in your garden, under your favourite tree, in a field, anywhere you feel still and as though you can do some writing. Now, some people can do it on voice to text, other people, and I'm one of them, for this particular exercise, I wanted pen and paper. What I did was write down my current day. Sorry, it doesn't have to be this particular day. In fact, I did the day before because it was an entire day. So from the moment you wake up, what can you see? What can you smell? What can you hear? And go through the whole day with what you did, what you ate, who you saw, whether you went to the gym or not. How was that? Did you see friends? Did you go shopping? Was it a work day? Write the whole thing down until it's bedtime. I then had a break where I got up and got myself another coffee and then got back to a clean sheet of paper and did the same exercise. It was my ideal day. And I wrote down what would happen on waking, what about breakfast, what about chores, things I had to do, who was with me, what was life like, and write down the whole thing until it's bedtime. And this is why I did it on pen and paper. I then looked at the two and compared them and identified where the gaps were. Some of those gaps are enormous, and some of them are things that you can tweak in your own life. And where the gaps were enormous, actually, there were steps on the way you could do. So if one of your ideal things that you've written down is having a six pack, then probably not a good idea to do it on day one. But there are things you can do about maybe the first step is going back to the gym, or if you don't go to the gym, start going for walks regularly. That there are ways of moving towards those things because you've identified those are important and those would give you satisfaction to have in the long term. I'm not saying this is perfect, and I'm not saying it won't change over time, particularly with your diagnosis. But to have a sense of why am I spending so much time doing X when X isn't getting me any closer to where I want to be? Why aren't I doing more of spending time with my family? Or why aren't I getting that dog I always wanted to get? You can do lots of things now, but not necessarily achieve everything in one day. But that certainly has changed my outlook. Hasn't solved everything, it hasn't made every other problem go away, but it's given me a much better sense of focus. I really, really hope that helps. I really do. Join me in another video. There are two more videos where I'm going to be talking much more about we're taking one step back and we're looking at the slightly insane journey I had to go through from the start to the end of diagnosis. As you may recall from other uploads, I did start out being diagnosed with a brain tumour. Shortly after that, I was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, and shortly after that, I was diagnosed with a cancer that they were pretty sure it was cancer. They were pretty sure it was a secondary cancer that they had found, but they had no idea what the primary was, or what the primary was, or what type of cancer it was. So, have a look at those, and thanks enormously for your time, and I will see you soon. Cheers.